often wonder how to take away privileges from one child without it affecting their other children. Joining us now is Dr. Elaine Ducharme, a psychologist with the clinical psychologist of Glastonbury, Connecticut, with tips on how to punish one child without punishing the rest. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. It's fun to be back.
Of course. So that's always a big question for parents. One child is in trouble, but they don't want it to affect the other child. How do you go about doing that?
Well, you know, sometimes life just isn't fair. So sometimes you end up having to punish both because you can't figure out who did what. So if you walk in and they're both crying and you're not sure, and you even think that you know who did it, sometimes the only thing to do is to punish both. Other times you really have to think about what you're going to do, and parenting is really tough. So for example, say you're planning a trip or you're planning to go to some event and one of your kids is just falling apart, and you really don't want to reward them with this event. Sometimes you have to postpone the punishment and say you'll get punished later, and you do go. Other times you have to actually punish that one child right then and there and say, you know what, you're not going. Mom's staying home with you, Daddy's taking your brother or your sister, and that's that. Or we're going to get a babysitter. Other times you really can sit down with them and try and figure out what's happening. But the bottom line is sometimes it really just, it's kind of hard to figure it out. You have to explain to them that yeah, your brother's not getting in trouble because he didn't do this and you are. And it's really kind of teaching them about life and taking responsibility for the things that they've done wrong or not done wrong. So I know it's kind of like, well, you're not treating us fairly, but in some ways you are if one child is the one that's really done the whatever they did and gotten into trouble. So trying to be respectful and recognizing that teaching kids, yeah, sometimes life just doesn't work out the way you want to. The other piece in that is sometimes we have kids who are they get very excited when something's happening, and so if they know way ahead of time that there's a big event going on, they're going to act out, and it's sort of a setup that one child is going to fall apart before you go to this event. So with those kinds of kids, you might not want to tell them about it until shortly before you're leaving, because you probably could figure out that they're going to fall apart, and then you're going to be in a position going, we're not going to go, we're not going to go. And if you're going to say we're not going to go, then don't go. Don't keep threatening that, because then you become really unbelievable as a parent.
And you said a word just a little bit ago. You said respect your children. You said one of the biggest things when it comes to punishment is to not demean your children, no matter what you decide to do.
Exactly. You know, you can punish, by telling them that you are very upset with their behavior, but you don't need to call them names. You treat them with respect, treat them the way you would want to be treated, because really that's one of the most important things. The other major rule in terms of overall kinds of discipline are to think about the fact that your child is going to do what you do, not what you say. So if you're walking around the house swearing and you're being disrespectful, that's what they're going to do. And, so remember that it really does fall back to what you're role modeling. That's really huge.
Right, and then you said something else that is so important is follow through.
Oh my goodness. So many parents will say, you are grounded for the summer. I mean, I used to see kids and they'd come in and they'd say, I'm on groundation for the rest of my life. Well, there is no such word as groundation.
I was going to say, what's that mean?
It doesn't. But the kids, these teenagers, they're being grounded or their computer's been taken away for 6 months. It's unrealistic. First of all, you don't want your teenager in the house for 6 months. You don't want them not being able to use the computer, because you will go crazy if that happens. So, you have to think about what's the punishment. Does it make sense? And are you giving them the opportunity to earn back the privilege? Okay, so if you say you're going to lose the privileges for 2 days, and tomorrow and for the next 2 days you need to show me that you can speak to me respectfully, at the end of those 2 days you may get the computer back, or you can be off of, you won't be grounded, and then you have an opportunity to show me in a reasonable period as to whether or not you've learned a lesson. And so using a punishment that is appropriate, that's age appropriate, we use timeouts for kids. With really little ones, usually the number of years that they are, we go by the minutes of timeout. So if they're 2 minutes kind of works. So it needs to be something that makes sense and that's doable and that you can follow through with. The other thing is please don't split with your partner. If you're co-parenting and your partner says, you need to go to your room, if you as the other parent walk in and say, oh, really, he didn't mean it, you've just lost credibility as a parent. So the other really important thing for parents to remember is if you're co-parenting, do it as a team. If you don't agree with each other, talk about it in private, but don't do it in front of the kids.
All right.
Kids are a work in progress. We all are.
Aren't we all?
We are. We have our good days, we have our bad days, and really I would just want parents to know this is the hardest job you'll ever have. It's 24/7. It never ends. You know, my kids are in their 40s, and when I hear Mom on the end of the line, I know they need a mommy, okay? And it's wonderful. So remember, it's all about that relationship building and loving each other and saying, you know, we take one day at a time, and it's the greatest gift that we've ever been given. Is
A
when we have
wonderful
children.
work in progress.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here and giving us those tips. They're
You're
very
welcome.
helpful.
Thanks.
To see these tips again, visit us online at mymassivepill.com later today.